in affiliation with Boss Rush Games. Please visit Boss Rush Games and follow them at the links below to read reviews, hear podcasts, and for all things video game related. Boss Rush Games. Play games. Be better. Last year, I detailed one of the PlayStation 2's earliest RPGs, Dark Cloud, created by the talented developers Level 5. Though sales were lackluster in Japan, it was an international hit, largely to its unique gameplay of combining elements of Zelda with Diablo and sprinkling in some city building to boot. Obviously, a sequel was warranted, and just 2 years later, one was released. Named Dark Chronicle in Japan and Europe, Dark Cloud 2 is actually more of a spiritual successor in that it features similar gameplay and mechanics, but a completely unique story. That's all well and good to me. Final Fantasy has been playing that tune for over 30 years now. In this story, players control Maximilian, a young aristocrat who enjoys getting his hands dirty working on machines rather than living a life of luxury. One day, a traveling circus arrives in Max's hometown of Palm Brinks, and Max excitedly attends, eager to witness the acrobats and trained elephant. Unbeknownst to him, the maniacal ringmaster Flotsam has brought his band of performers to Palm Brinks in search of a powerful jewel, and just so happens to find it around Max's neck. An heirloom, gifted to Max by his father, this gem is said to possess wondrous powers of time control. Flotsam orders his minions to capture Max, and the young boy is only able to fully escape the circus's grasp with the help of Monica, a beautiful young princess that hails from the future. Monica too owns a jewel of similar repute, and she explains to Max that Flotsam is a lackey for the vile Emperor Griffin, who rules with hatred towards humans at someplace 10,000 years in the past. Griffin, Monica informs our hero, is attacking the points of origin of people and places, erasing them from the memory of time. Armed with this information and their powerful stones, Max and Monica set out to restore the origin points and defeat Emperor Griffin once and for all. If you played the first game or have seen my review, then you'll be familiar with the game's structure. Players will arrive at a location that has been damaged by the villain, dive into its dungeon to defeat enemies and find geostones that allow Max to rebuild the locale back to its original state, and then rinse and repeat. The core concept of the first Dark Cloud is still intact here, but there are some key differences, which I'll explain in detail. First of all, instead of controlling multiple characters with unique abilities, players will only step into the shoes of two, Max and Monica. Max wields heavy-hitting wrenches, hammers, and the like, with powerful guns to attack at range, while Monica's swords slice and dice slightly quicker, and her enchanted bracelets allow her to conjure up magic spells. It's great that each character has both a ranged and melee attack, so you don't have to switch to a new character just to hit an enemy from afar. I just wish that the two protagonists were a little less similar, as their weapons and attacks have roughly the same effect on foes. Improving your weaponry is just like in the first game, but with more depth. In the original, you attached gems to your weapons that gave them bonuses, and as you used your gear, they will level up and absorb the gems that you've assigned to them. In Dark Cloud 2, when your weapon gains a level, you earn points that you can then use to fuse spheres into it. The new layer of strategy is on how you obtain these spheres and how you use them. It can be a bit confusing, but let me try to explain. See, to get spheres, you need to break down items in your inventory. Perhaps you find a wind crystal. You can earn a sphere that offers 3 wind element points by breaking it down. Or maybe you have a rare emerald that offers 10 points on 3 different elements once transformed into a sphere. The cool thing is that each of these spheres, regardless if it offers 1 point or 10 or more, still counts as using a single sphere on your weapon. Do you wait to capitalize on upgrading using the rare, more powerful items you find, or strengthen your gear with weaker, easier to find materials? The choice is yours. By far, the easiest way of upgrading your equipment is by breaking down weaker weapons that you're no longer using, which creates a sphere that possesses a fraction of the abilities that weapon had. It's a tedious process, as that means you have to spend time upgrading inferior gear to improve what you actually want to use. You can make this process easier by defeating an enemy with your better gear, then switching to your weak weapons when collecting the experience orbs that flow out of defeated adversaries. But that also means constantly going into your equipment menu, and it sucks to flow out of combat. Still, it's better to obliterate a foe's health bar with one hit than chipping away at it with 24 or so. Weapons still deteriorate in health as you use them, as in the first game, but once broken, they don't disappear from your inventory. Instead, you just have to use an item to repair them, then it's back to killing baddies. This alleviates so much stress that was in the original, you have no idea. One major difference between Monica and Max is a special mode that they can switch to. Max can summon his mechanical ride pod, named Steve, at any point in time, and his incredible stats can lay waste to enemies with exceptional ease. Steve's weapons lose health just the same as the human characters, but repairing them is just as easy. His health bar, however, is measured in fuel and will slowly trickle down the more you use him. Still, upgrading him is extremely easy, and his power is beyond useful. In fact, plowing through dungeons in Max's ride pod is almost like playing on easy mode. Want to clear a dungeon floor in minutes? Play as Steve. Boss giving you trouble and want him dead in seconds? Play as Steve. Monica has her own special mode, which I found far less useful. Monica can collect badges that allow her to transform into 10 different monster types, each of which have 2 moves to use and will transform into even more powerful versions when leveled up enough. This sounds awesome in theory, but in practice, it comes across as almost useless. First of all, Monica is plenty powerful enough to deal with most any situation without having to turn into an enemy. And if I did happen to run into a problem, Max and Steve are also just a button press away, and both are arguably even better. Secondly, all monster forms start out so weak that even killing first level foes is a drag. I never felt any form gave me an advantage that I already didn't have. Thus, I never felt compelled to grind for literal hours to level them up enough so that they'll evolve. Lastly, obtaining these badges to give you your monster abilities isn't exactly easy. Monica must either defeat an enemy in a very specific way, such as blowing up a bomb-headed enemy with a bomb item, or gift an enemy with an item that they desire. There are very few hints in game to find out the answers to these puzzles though, and I had to resort to a guide to find more than just the initial badges. It's a headache all around. Thus, I'll just avoid Monica's transformations and stick to her standard gear. There are a few more changes in regards to the dungeons as well. The thirst meter, which slowly depleted while exploring, is completely absent in this game, meaning you can take all the time you need to search dungeons thoroughly. Character-specific puzzles are also gone, meaning all that you need to do to open locked doorways is to find a key hidden in a chest on that floor. The QuickTime event duel system is also removed, which felt completely unnecessary in the original anyway, so good riddance with that. The difficulty isn't nearly as troublesome as it was in the first game, although, if you remember from that review, I didn't have nearly as many problems with it as it seems most people claim. The one major annoyance I had when combating foes is that many enemies don't have much of a wind-up before attacking. You could be wailing away on these mole guys, for instance, and suddenly they launch at you without any kind of warning. You have to really be on the defensive in this game, or else you'll be seeing the game over screen much more often than you'll like. Once you get that tactic down though, combat can be a breeze. Or you can just use Steve. That works too. City building has been greatly improved from the first game in many ways. For starters, the player will need to find the essence of the item that they are wanting to build, located in dungeons in the form of geostones. But just possessing the geostone isn't enough to craft what's needed. Instead, Max will require materials, found either in dungeons or in shops, to build these and then place them throughout the area. The player has much more freedom in how they craft their town, being able to attach chimneys and lights to buildings, turn a home to face any direction, including diagonally, and can even bring items from other settlements to be built into another. That means the windmill from the ocean area can also be built in the volcanic region, and so forth. It's a great way to make each area your own, while staying within the parameters to complete the goals in each location. Perhaps my favorite thing about the city building is recruiting citizens from Palm Brinks to accompany you and move to these rebuilt locales. By completing quests for residents in the starting area, they can join you on your journey. Initially, they will find a seat on the train that you use to travel, until you reach a place and assign them to a home to move into. It's a fun, simple way of building a collection, which I love to do in games. It's not unlike drafting characters to be part of your army in the Suikoden games, which is another big plus. These citizens do much more than inhabit your cities, however. Each one can tag along in your party and provide a passive ability that can aid you. Maybe it's providing extra damage to undead creatures, or healing you when you're poisoned, or maybe even giving you more points for your guns when they level up. Utilizing them in strategic ways can sometimes give you just the upper hand you need to make it through a difficult area. Dark Cloud 2 contains several mini-games that are used to pad out the game's length. They are all very involved, much deeper in construct than you'll normally find in an RPG like this, but I found none of them very appealing. You first unlock a fishing game, which you can use to capture aquatic creatures from all over the world. Each fish prefers a certain bait, swims in specific waters, and appears more frequently at certain hours of the day. Fish that you catch can then be placed in an aquarium and can be fed and raised to boost their stats. Later, you unlock the fish races, and you can submit your captured creatures in a competition against others and win prizes that can really boost your weaponry. It's a serious challenge to find all of the fish and raise them to be the very best, like no fish ever was, but it can offer hours of enjoyment for those invested enough to go through with it. Another complex minigame is the Sport Sfida, which you unlock about a quarter of the way through your adventure. Sfida is essentially golf, and it is a very cool idea, keyword idea. After you complete a dungeon floor, you'll sometimes have the opportunity to play Sfida. Somewhere randomly located on that floor will be a portal that is either red or blue, and somewhere else will be a ball that is also one of those two colors. Your goal is to hit the ball into the portal, but you can only do that if the ball is the opposite color of the portal. Each time the ball hits a surface, it will change colors, meaning you will be required to bounce it off walls to successfully win in most rounds. You can collect Sfida sticks, i.e. clubs, or build your own, each with their own unique stats. You can curve the ball, give it a top spin, do many of the things that you can do in a more proper golf game. Again, cool stuff. The issue is that, just like the first game, each floor of the dungeon is randomly generated. This means that the ball and portal will always be in a different location each time you play. When you clear the floor, you'll be given a certain amount of shots to close the portal, and if you fail, you'll have to return to the floor again. This means that if you fail on one attempt, you'll never get the same Spheda hole again, and will have to try one that is possibly even harder than the one you just failed at. Furthermore, the game has an awful habit of underestimating just how many shots you'll need to succeed, rarely putting into consideration how many walls you'll need to bounce off of to make it to the goal. The final bit of frustration comes as the incredible frequency in which the ball goes off course. Almost every area has a pitfall at the edges of its path, be it water in the sewers or lava in the volcano, so if your ball rolls too close to the wall, it will fall into the abyss and will cost you a valuable swing. The rewards for Spheda are extremely helpful, but frankly, by the midway point, I hated the minigame and swore off of it. I only have so many years of my life left to live, and I think too many rounds of Spheda will cost me a few of those. Every dungeon level has medals that you can earn. These are different for each floor, but players can earn medals by clearing the level in a certain time frame, or using only a certain character, or not healing, or even playing Spheda. It's a fun concept to extend the longevity of the game and give the sometimes repetitive dungeons a bit of variety. But medals only offer paltry rewards in the form of cosmetic clothing options for your characters. With more incentive, it would be worth earning them all, but sadly they're by and large worth ignoring. A major mechanic of the game is taking pictures and building things based on what you've captured in your lens. Early on, Max will be gifted a camera to take pictures of items in his environment for ideas in his workshop. There are literally hundreds of items to snap a photo of, from common objects like street lamps and rocks and chairs, to a very specific rug found in only one building in the game. You can even photograph particular enemies in the middle of an attack animation to get inspiration. It can be fun searching the area looking for things to take a picture of, but there's really no indication of what is located where or how many pictures are available in a given area or anything like that. It's so easy to miss something and not know where it is without referring to a guide. What's worse is that too many of these, especially those that require you to snap a picture of a boss character in a certain pose, are available only for a limited time, and once you pass that moment, they are lost for good. This is enormously frustrating when you found out that you've missed something that you cannot go back to. A trophy on the PlayStation 4 release is even tied to taking a picture of every possible thing and building every possible item, making this one of the most easily missed platinums I can think of obtaining. Building items is as simple as selecting the 3 photo ideas to come up with an invention, then acquiring the necessary materials needed to build it. The hard part of this is that finding the right combination of photo ideas is about as easy as making it through an early 90s adventure title without a guide. Many of the photo combinations make zero sense to me. Who would think to get a grenade launcher you need to combine a chimney, an egg, and a fountain? It makes no sense. For this reason, either don't stress about building too much or keep a walkthrough open on your computer or your phone at all times. Graphically, Dark Cloud 2 is pretty gorgeous, even to this day. The cel-shaded art style has aged very, very well, having a similar look to games like The Wind Waker and Wild Arms 3. The animations aren't always great, but the level of detail in the environments and expert use of color really make this game charming to look at. The sound design is a bit of a mixed bag. Dark Cloud 2 consists of a large cast of voiceover talent, featuring some of the most well-known voice actors of the time. Andy McAfee and Scott Menville voice Monica and Max respectively, while the rest of the cast includes such talent as Kath Soucie, Cam Clark, Paul Eiding, Jennifer Hale, and even Mark Hamill. They do exceptional work with what they're given, but I think that many are miscast. Several times a character will show up, and the sound that comes out of their mouth is nowhere near what I would expect. You have this beefed up bearded man here, smoking a cigar, and you think maybe he'll sound like Sergeant Slaughter or something, and he comes out sounding like this.
Raining embers? That's probably the fire squall.
Or maybe this Bigfoot looking guy.
It's pitiful, really, but I was awful hungry, and somehow got my hands on the forbidden fruit.
The music is also a bit of a letdown. Tomohito Nishiura returns as composer, and while the majority of his songs sound good, they loop far too quickly. Most melodies only last about 30 seconds before they repeat. This is like music composition from the NES era, when the cartridges had limited memory, not on the much more powerful PlayStation 2. In short, I expected better, because the first game had some really great compositions, and more could have been done here. There are plenty of shortcomings with Dark Cloud 2, but overall, Level 5 succeeds in making a memorable and fun action RPG. Just like the first game, the seed is there for something truly great. Unfortunately, since the sequel's release in 2002, the Dark Cloud series has remained untouched, aside from a PS4 re-release with trophy and HD support. I would be thrilled if we got a third entry in this franchise, or even a reboot or something that further polishes what was given to us almost 2 decades ago. Alas, in October of 2020, Level 5 announced that its North American branch of operations would be shutting down, and the future of the company has been up in the air since. Until we know for certain, fans of Dark Cloud and their other incredible titles will just have to hope that we'll see more of them in the future.